The New York Mets hit a ton of home runs. Juan Soto does something he's never done in his career before, and the Mets take care of business in Colorado for a sweep to get to 18 games above 500. Welcome into another edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. Chris Schubert, Jack McKessie back with you here. Episode number 63 of the pod. A full series recap of what went on in Colorado. Pete Alonso drawing ever closer to being the Mets all-time home run leader. The Mets offense, a lot of home runs, still struggling to hit with runners in scoring position. We'll try to get to the bottom of that here on the show as well. All of it for you today on the pod. Jack, how are you, my friend?
Chris, the great Mary Poppins once said, a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down. And if the last loss of the Dodgers series was the medicine, I would say that a 3-game sweep of the Colorado Rockies in the way that the Mets just did it is the spoonful of sugar right there.
I need to just share with the listeners of the program that we have a brand new show rundown that we have put together to format the show and what we're going to talk about. And Jack did a bunch of work to put on there what we were going to talk about. And we had a nice little pre-show, maybe 5 minutes catching up, getting ready for the program. Not once did I get a hint that was what was coming to me, that Mary Poppins was going to be quoted on the show. You had a very good poker face throughout the entire pre-show process, because that was definitely a pre-planned thing. And you just had that ready to go and didn't tell me about it. Excellent,
Chris,
job.
I got to keep you on your toes. Even when we're preparing better for this podcast, Chris, there has to be ways that I can keep you on your toes.
You need to have the element of surprise, and you certainly delivered the element of surprise here. Top line for the Mets, a great weekend with the bats, specifically power-wise. 25 home runs over their last 10 games, in which they are sporting an 8-2 record in those 10 games. The power is the name of the game. Top line, it's Pete Alonso doing a lot of that power, and so maybe that's where we want to start. But the bats are starting to get hot, and they're starting to hit the long ball. They hit a bunch of them in the series with Colorado. They hit 3 home runs at least in 5 of the 6 games that they played against Colorado. So taking advantage of a very good matchup for them pitching-wise and playing in Coors Field and being at altitude. They took full advantage of it, and you had some nice moments. Jeff McNeil with a multi-home run game in this series. Francisco Alvarez, potentially the at-bat, the home run that sparks him getting back offensively, only his 2nd home run of the season. Ronnie Mauricio hits a home run in this series. I mean, you just got contributions all across the board. But top line, 30,000-foot view, the Mets are hitting a lot more home runs than they were at the beginning of the season.
There's part of me, like, I'm in a weird spot right now because, again, they were just at Coors Field for this last series. And, like, you would be lying if you said that first Pete Alonso home run in the last game would have been a home run in all 30 parks. That ball just carried and it still barely got out. So we have to take all of the results there with a little bit of a grain of salt. And the lack of good Rockies pitching is something to consider as well, because like you said, Chris, a lot of these multi-home run games against the Rockies weren't all at Coors Field. There were several at Citi Field.
I don't know. That first game, Anthony Senzatella was dominant from the moment he came into the game for the first couple of innings. So I was a little nervous there at the beginning of that series. Senzatella came in, just guy's got a 7 ERA. Mets couldn't solve him for the first couple of innings. So I mean, I don't be too disrespectful to that Colorado pitching staff.
That's true. But I mean, the box score can tell its own story with the amount of runs and the amount of hits that the Mets had after struggling for a big part of the early season. Another guy I wanted to shout out here for hitting a home run on, 2 days ago, Brett Beatty with his first home run since late May. It was nice to see him starting to come back. He had been slumping is a strong word for like a couple of weeks of a lack of power, but he hadn't been the Beatty that we saw kind of almost carry the Mets offense for the month of May. And so to have him come back, to have Mauricio, like you said, contribute, Alvarez to hit that home run, it kind of felt like, I mean, like I said, Coors Field, getting the bats hot, it's that spoonful of sugar, and hopefully the Mets are able to turn that into more power, more success on the offensive side of things as they come up in this part of the schedule where there's a lot of divisional games and a real nice chance for them to build an even bigger lead in the division right now.
Yeah, it was Beatty's first road home run of the season. All of his previous home runs had come at home, so that was really good. You mentioned Mauricio and the home run that he hit. Let's have the Ronnie Mauricio conversation now, because when the series started and he got the start at shortstop in lieu of Francisco Lindor, who was dealing with the toe, and he had those first couple of at-bats that weren't very good. I think he had a key strikeout with the bases loaded in that game, flailing at a pitch outside of the zone. And that's what comes with the territory with Ronnie Mauricio. And you could start to hear the whispers of, man, is this a mistake playing him? Is this a mistake having him up at the big league level? Did they rush this because of the Vientos injury? And then he hit that double in the last at bat of that game, and it just sparked an entire weekend of greatness for Mauricio. He got on the first 2 times the next day, then got on base 4 times in the finale, hit a home run, the longest home run that had been hit all season by a Met at 456 feet, although Pete tried to give him a run for his money, hitting one 450. It was after that double that something seemingly just clicked for Mauricio, and he just had a great weekend. And I think they're going to continue to find ways for him to play and be in the lineup every day, just because they need some offensive production. And the lengthening of this lineup was another takeaway that I had. You got production from the bottom part of the lineup in the second game of this series, and it was just a great day, a great weekend for everybody in this lineup to contribute. And when you have a deep, lengthy lineup, just makes it difficult for opposing teams there's no soft spot, right? They can't be like, oh, this is where we're going to get a pitcher into a groove and have their confidence. You just have tough at bat after tough at bat after tough at bat. And the Mets certainly did that after the first game of this series, Saturday and Sunday in particular.
Another thing we have to point out about Mauricio too is what he brings as a switch hitter in this lineup. Adds a little bit of extra ability for Carlos Mendoza to manipulate the lineup and get a nice flow of right, left, or some kind of change up with how he's able to arrange things. Obviously, he's also a very versatile defender in terms of positions he can play. Naturally, a shortstop. He's played a lot of second base. He's played some third base. So that helps as well. And then finally, the strength thing. Obviously, the best way that it manifests is in his power. You mentioned the double. He had the home run in this series. But also, like in that last game of the series, we saw a couple times where he would get jammed and he's just able to muscle the ball into the outfield and get a base hit and get on base for, like you said, as part of the bottom part of the lineup, setting up things for the top of the lineup when that circles back around. So to have all of those tools finally start to piece together, it really felt like that double was kind of the catalyst for, okay, I belong in the big leagues. I haven't been here for a while. I had the knee injury. I've maybe been pressing with some of the tough at-bats. I haven't been great with plate discipline, but I got the double. I'm here, and we saw what happened the rest of the series.
It just freed him up, right? It just felt like he had the weight lifted off of his shoulders of, okay, I got the first one down, and now I can be more comfortable and confident up there and not just overthink it. And it just led to a really good weekend. It was also a really good weekend for Pete Alonso, who moved into second place on the Mets all-time home run list, very quickly approaching Darryl Strawberry. It's making me a little nervous. I have a running joke with my dad that when we go to David Wright's retirement day, that is where Pete will do it, and that's where he will become the Mets all-time home run leader. We're now at a pace where he may do it well before that. Like
Run
he
out of
is,
time.
we are vastly approaching him at this pace, doing this by the end of the week with how many home runs he is hitting. A multi-home run game on Sunday, and listen, he's hitting over 300 for the season. He's leading the National League in home runs. He's hitting all of these home runs. He's an MVP candidate. Like he is. I know Kyle Tucker's having a great year in Chicago. I know Pete Crow Armstrong's having a great year. I know Ohtani's always going to be in the conversation. Freddie Freeman's having a great year in LA, but Pete Alonso is the MVP right now of the National League. And I don't know if maybe it's close, but man, he's got a 396 on base percentage, a 182 OPS plus. His WAR is at 3 already. I mean, June has just been incredible. The run he has been on has more home runs than he had all of May already by June 10th. RBIs, he's just on fire right now. And after taking a small step back in May, after the hot April, he is right back to being the guy we saw at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, a couple things. First, I just want to put my hand up once again and say I was wrong about Pete Alonso and saying that I didn't know he was going to be able to contribute this season. I thought there were signs of regression over the last 2 seasons were fully going to be in effect for 2025. And he has done everything to prove me wrong. And like you said, he's playing at an MVP pace right now. I don't know if he can necessarily keep up that batting average and the OPS numbers, but the home runs are coming and they're coming in full force. He already has passed David Wright, who's right behind me for you viewers on YouTube, for second all time on the Mets home run list. He's 9 away from Darryl Strawberry now.
Not the actual David Wright, just a picture of David Wright.
Well, Chris, I wanted them to tune into YouTube, and if David Wright was sitting behind me.
Yeah, it would. I got to tell you, if David Wright was sitting behind you this whole time and we did not bring him into the pod and we're 10 minutes in, we should never be able to host the podcast again. So
that's true.
Would have been malpractice on our part. But
it is a frame with a lot of David Wright memorabilia that's behind me. But to have Pete Alonso playing the way he is has been massive. I truly don't know where the Mets would be this season without him in terms of how he's contributed to so many of their wins this season.
Well, think about how the season started, right? In April, it always takes Lindor a little bit, even though he had got off to a better start than normal. Yeah. It took him a little bit. Soto, we know the struggles that he went through the first 2 months of the season. Pete carried the offense on his back for the entire month of April. And so the team would not be where they are at right now without how well Pete has played this season.
Right.
No question.
And April alone is just a testament to how good Pete has been. And then this recent stretch has been a good reminder. But I saw a good piece, Chris, that I linked to our show notes from Will Salmon of The Athletic talking about Pete Alonso has recruited a team of outside consultants to help him prepare for every single game. On top of the work that he does with the team for preparing for pitching matchups and potential bullpen guys that he might face, he's getting outside help. And the way Will Salmon pointed out in The Athletic is how it's manifested, not just the power, not just the numbers, not just the better plate discipline, right? He's not chasing as much as at those down and out sliders that we had seen for 6 years, but he's also being able to limit those periods where he can get a little bit cold. You mentioned in May, he took a little bit of a step back. He didn't hit as many home runs. His average dipped a pretty significant amount. And in past years, we've seen how that can sometimes spiral into long stretches of offers or complete power droughts for Pete. Last year, it was his career low in home runs, even though he hit, 30 plus. But to see him come back with the June that he's had so far is a really nice example of how that outside help is letting him limit those slumps, limit those cold periods to much, much shorter periods and allowing him to contribute again as a power hitter, as a scary cleanup batter that is thriving right now in 10 days into June.
I can just see the New York sports talk radio scene going, oh, Pete getting outside help, doesn't trust Jeremy Barnes and Eric Chavez to help him
right.
Get out of his slump. I can just see the think pieces being written about that. I mean, this is by every stretch, every metric that you look at, his best season. The OPS plus at 182. His career high before that was his rookie year where it was a 147. Like, he's doing something that he's never done in the history of his career. He's hitting for a great average while hitting for the home runs, while driving in the runs. I mean, it's just been incredible to see. I mean, just to put it into perspective, last year he had a 2.6 WAR. He's already at a 2.9 WAR this season.
Yeah.
We are 66 games in for him. Like, it's just been incredible to see what he has been able to accomplish this season in what is basically a walk year. I mean, I know it's a multi-year contract, but it has a player option at the end of the year. Yeah. And at this pace, prediction here on the pod, Pete Alonso going to opt out of his contract at the end of the season and hit free agency again and see if he can get more money. Yeah, just been awesome to see. I was critical of bringing him back because I didn't think he could be a 1, 2, or 3 option for your offense. I was wrong because he was the number one option for this offense at the start of the year. And he's just been incredible. And it's great to see, like, a homegrown Met still here, being able to have all these moments. That was the sentimental thing that drew us back to wanting Pete on this team. And I have no problem running away from the fact, or not shying away from the fact, that I was okay with him leaving this offseason. I could see what the plan was going to be, but I'll tell you, I'm very happy that Pete is back on the team, hitting and mashing all of these home runs. There is one thing that the Mets aren't doing still, and that is hitting with runners in scoring position. It reared its ugly head again. What was that, in the second game of this series, where they went 2 for 14 with runners in scoring position? So you know what, Jack? You had surprises with Mary Poppins. I've got surprises for you. I ran the numbers. The New York Mets so far this season are 26th with runners in scoring position, a 218 batting average. Now, that's not the only numbers I want to share with you. I want to share with you the last 5 World Series champions and what they hit with runners in scoring position.
Interesting.
During those seasons. The 2024 Dodgers, the reigning defending champs, they were 8th in all of baseball. They hit 266 with runners in scoring position. In 2023, the Rangers were 4th, 275 with runners in scoring position. The 2022 Astros were third in all of baseball, hitting 270. The 2021 Braves were third. They hit 268. The 2020 Dodgers, they were second. They hit 278. The Mets are 26th and hitting 218. The lowest number on this list was the Dodgers last year. They hit 266 and they were eighth. In order to win a championship, at least in the last 5 years, you had to be really good at hitting with runners in scoring position. And so far, up until this point this season, the Mets aren't just bad at it. They're one of the worst teams in baseball at it. And so they have to figure this out because it may be the thing, maybe the only thing that holds them back from reaching their potential as a World Series championship team.
I mean, I tweeted it out earlier this week. My mind can't even fathom how good this Mets team could be. Think about how many one-score losses they had in the month of May that could have just been flipped if they had any player come through in an important moment. We talked about it in our last episode against the Dodgers, that 13-inning marathon that was just a prime example of what this Mets team has struggled with all season and hitting with runners in scoring position. It's been a frustrating thing. Obviously, in game 2 of this Rocky series, it didn't really matter because of all the home runs and some of the doubles that were scoring guys from first base. So they ended up scoring 8 runs despite going 2 for 14. But like at some point, you have to come through in the clutch. And this team has not been able to do that so far. The pitching has been phenomenal. I Bleav they lead the major leagues in team ERA. And so that has done a very big part in limiting the damage that the lack of clutch hitting could have had on this Mets team. But it is clear that if the Mets want to be World Series contenders, and you pointed it out beautifully right there, they need to get better at coming through in these moments. We saw how important it was last season in the postseason against the Phillies in the NLDS, where hit after hit after hit would come in these important moments. And that just hasn't happened yet this season.
Yeah, and you hope some luck starts bouncing their ways where when they put the ball in play in those spots, maybe they get some good fortune to go their way, hits start to drop, and then it becomes more of a snowball and the confidence starts to roll. But they have to get better with this. It's really the only flaw. That and the lefty options in the bullpen that I think could hold this team back from being the top team in the National League. And again, it didn't rear its ugly head against Colorado because you slugged a bunch of home runs all weekend. But they have to be better in these situational spots. I can't tell you how many times my friend Jack will text me in the moment and say, boy, is this team make me want to rip my hair out with their inability to hit with runners in scoring position. Like at one point you text me like, I don't know how I can be this mad at a team this good, but they are making me this mad because they just cannot get a hit with runners in scoring position, 2 outs in a big spot. So just wanted to pull the numbers on it just to see, because I was wondering, okay, they're bad at it, right? Is it really going to stop them? Well, if you look at just the last 5 World Series champions, they were all really good at it. And maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe it's not, causation equals correlation. Maybe it's not that. But man, it just feels like they're going to have to get better at that situational hitting, the driving those key runs. I can just envision a 1-run game late in the playoffs, runner at third, less than 2 outs. Got to get that run in, right? Got to get that insurance run in a big spot. So you can very easily dream of the scenarios where they're going to need to be better than 26th and hitting 218 with runners in scoring position. Let's quickly touch on the pitching from this series. Coors Field, always an adventure for the pitchers. And I thought you saw the pitching lab and you saw the Mets pitching on full display. I mean, Kodai Senga said, you know what? I throw my forkball 29% of the time. Watch this. It's going to be my primary pitch tonight. I'm going to throw 49 of my 109 pitches are going to be forkballs. Then you saw on the second game of this series, Clay Holmes say, yeah, you know what? I'm just going to throw a bunch of sliders over and sweepers. We're just going to throw breaking stuff over and over and over again. And then Tyler McGill realized, hey, you know what? My fastball is really good. Just going to throw the fastball a bunch. Like, the Mets just came in and they just had a plan and they just executed a plan. And it was like, man, if every team could just do this at Coors Field, I'm not scared. Wasn't afraid. It's just incredible to watch.
It was great. I don't want to take too much away from the Mets pitching because like I said, they're leading the majors in team ERA. They've been phenomenal all season. And to have this kind of performance from 3 straight starting pitchers at Coors Field is phenomenal. It also felt like it was just bullying. Like the Rockies, they mentioned multiple times on the broadcast, have averaged 3 runs per game. And they play half of their games at Coors Field, Chris. They don't just play one series a year like the Mets do.
And They strike out a ton. They whiff a ton. They just flail their bats. And boy, did Kodai Senga and Clay Holmes take full advantage of that over the first 2 days of this series.
They sure did. They said, I'm going to, all three of those starting pitchers said, I'm going to throw what I think is my best pitch or my second best pitch, and I'm going to make you hit it. And if you can't hit it, I'm just going to keep throwing it. And we saw that work to great effect. It's, again, like you said, it's a testament to how good the pitching lab has been to get these guys able to perform like this. But it's also against the Rockies, and it's just good teams with great pitching bullying a team with some of the worst hitting in the majors right now. And the Mets just took care of business from up and down the roster. Like, everyone contributed this series.
I'm doing some quick math because I looked that the Rockies swung at 58 of Senga's 109 pitches. That is 53%.
That is a lot of swinging.
They're just, and that's not all swing and miss, but that's just the approach of just being aggressive. And
they did miss a good amount, though.
They did miss a good amount. And then in the second game of this series, with Clay Holmes, I mean, it was just, hey, sweeper slider to the right-handers, low and away. And the Rockies just never made the adjustment.
Yeah.
They never made the adjustment. They never figured it out. And that's a product of, you've got a young squad. You had a shortstop making his MLB debut in Ryan Ritter all series long. They didn't have their best player in Ezekiel Tovar. You know, Beck is young. They've got young players that they're giving at bats to. And so that's going to happen. But the Mets took full advantage of the inexperience and the aggressiveness of the Colorado Rockies, and they used it against them. Do we want to have the Tyler McGill conversation again? Do we want to just check it off the bingo card, or
I'm good. I texted you during the game on Sunday, and I said, this is just the quintessential Tyler McGill experience, because he goes through 4 innings hitless.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, a complete implosion in the 5th inning.
Well, he almost had the implosion in the second inning because he just all of a sudden decided to stop throwing his fastball after throwing all fastballs in the first inning and striking out the side. For whatever reason, he changed up the plan in the second and said, you know what? Let's just go against what worked in the first inning, and then worked himself into trouble.
Yep.
Command wasn't there. It was the good and the bad. The first inning is the great of Tyler McGill, and then the second and then the 5th inning meltdown was just all the bad. This is what stops him from being great. This is what stops him from having a stranglehold on a rotation spot, is you can never put it all together over the course of a start, and then you can't put it all together over a series of 3, 5, 7 starts. He's just not able to do that.
Yeah.
It's just tough.
Juan
Soto.
Also, real quick, just on the pitching note from that last game, it was great to see Paul Blackburn come out of the bullpen. Obviously, he did not have the same success that he did against the Dodgers, 5 innings scoreless.
It doesn't matter.
But it didn't matter, because
what mattered is saved everybody else.
He saved the whole bullpen. He threw 4 innings. He gave up, I think, 3 runs. But at the end of the day, like, you can say, oh, maybe he's not as effective. I just think when you're up by a bajillion runs, or however much the Mets were up by the time he came in, you just got to throw strikes. You can't let guys on base for free. He did that sometimes, but they were able to take advantage of some of his pitches that floated over the middle of the plate. And I don't have many worries for if Paul Blackburn's coming into a game, it's probably going to be in a long reliever situation anyway. So to have him do what he did his job that day, and the Mets were able to save the entire bullpen and get a full reset after the off day on Monday.
I have to ask you a tough question.
Sure.
Are you worried about Huascar Braziban?
No.
Because I'm not. I was asked the same question, and I am not worried about Huascar Braziban. I think what we have seen, and he's given up, I think, 3 or 4 earned runs in his last 4 outings. It's been a recent run of him giving up some earned runs. And I think, truthfully, my answer was that this is a byproduct of just how much the Mets are asking of their bullpen.
Yeah.
And he just seems overworked because the stuff is still lively. It just feels like he's tired. It just feels like he's being asked to do something every single day. And so at some point, the dam is going to break every once in a while. And that's why it was great that they got as many days off for Reed Garrett as they did in this series. Because, I mean, the 4 high leverage arms for this team right now, Diaz, Garrett, Braziban, Stanek. Those are the 4 guys they're going to turn to in their highest leverage moments right now. And you just have to try to get those guys rest as often as humanly possible. And that's why the last 2 games of this series were so crucial for the Mets. Blackburn giving you what he did on Sunday so that you didn't have to use anybody out of the pen. And then having an 8-1 game on Saturday where you don't have to use everybody out there and you can get guys some days off. So just really, really great to see them find days off for their relievers. But no, I'm not worried about Braziban. Now, if after the days of rest we get back to this being a problem, then I am going to start being a little worried. In all of this, we did not talk about the heroics of Francisco Lindor in Game 1, coming off the
No,
bench in a
I
pinch hit
mean,
spot and putting the Mets in front. I mean, just you want to talk about some MVP level stuff. That was just incredible. Absolute cinema, to quote one of my favorite memes.
Absolute cinema. Just the hit, but also the slide by Pete to get that second run in from first base. That was something else.
A little aggressive on the send there with Pete, but we got in.
I mean, it was a little aggressive, but it ended up working out for the Mets. They didn't need that extra insurance
Also,
run, but
lucky that he was called safe on the field because that was not getting overturned on replay.
No.
That was like borderline, could you have gone either way? And so the fact that they called him safe was the only thing that I think kept them safe.
Yeah. I mean, the story of the play, though, is obviously Lindor coming off of the bench and coming through clutch again. I mean, I texted you after the game, like, he is starting to push his way up into all-time Met status. I know it was against the Rockies. I know it was Game 1 of a series in June. But you think about all of the moments that he's had this year with some walk-offs, whether it's a sacrifice fly, a home run, a go-ahead double in the 9th inning off of the bench with a broken toe. Like, the guy lives and dies Mets baseball. And where this team goes, or where he goes, this team goes. We've seen it with the home run streak. The Mets have won 27 games in a row.
27 now.
He's hit a home run in.
Yeah, he hasn't hit a home run recently, but yeah, it's 27 is what they're
and
up
it's
to.
Just like, the guy is the Mets right now. He is the face of this team, and we saw that happen in the first game of the series. It was just incredible, an incredible moment.
Juan Soto had a game in which he got on base all 6 times he stepped up, and he never has done that in his career.
This many times? I'm holding up 6 fingers right now.
6 times. Yeah, 3 of them were hits, 3 of them were singles, and then 3 of them were walks. And when you add 3 and 3, that makes 6. 6 times in a row, Juan Soto got on base. It just don't slander Juan Soto. I don't know what, like, he's great. He's awesome. This is exactly what you expect from Juan Soto. And then the power is going to come. He's already starting to hit for a little bit more pop. He's going the other way with the baseball. He's starting to be confident.
Here's the thing is when opposing pitchers are starting to realize that, this Pete Alonso season is for real. Like, he might be playing at an MVP level for the whole season, at least for the first 3 months. I'm not going to want to give Soto a free pass to think that Alonso's the easier out here. I'm going to need to throw some pitches in the zone for Soto, and he gets that line of protection. Now, the 2 hitting spot is something that's still kind of a rotating situation. Nimmo's had some time there.
Starling Marte
tonight.
Yeah, it's unfortunate.
But Soto in the 3 spot and Pete in the 4 spot has been a really nice lineup change that Mendoza has made, and it's led to some good results for both of them.
A 3-game series starting tonight with the Washington Nationals. The best starter for Washington going tonight, Mackenzie Gore. He's
not a bore.
Not a bore. Mackenzie Gore is not a bore. Griffin Canning going for the Mets, and then it's David Peterson against Jake Irvin, and then Kodai Senga against Mike Soroka in the finale of this series. You're at home. You had a day off. You know what to do. I mean, the Mets know exactly what they need to do in this series. You got to win the series. You've increased your lead in the National League East up to 4 games over the Phillies. You're 11.5 up on this Nationals team, who's 5 games
who are in third place.
Who are in third place in front of the Atlanta Braves. And look, across the board, Philly's not playing well. Atlanta's not playing well. Washington is below 500. Like, this is your chance. I don't want to go as far as to say run away and hide with the NL East, because I just don't expect that. There's going to be a little bit of a counterpunch. But to make it difficult for them to bounce back and make this a competitive division in August and September, it's series like this that you really got to take advantage of.
Yeah, when you're winning games against the Dodgers and the Rockies, you're taking care of business out west while the Braves and the Phillies are having their struggles. It builds you a nice little pillow. And when you have more series against a team like the Nationals, where you should be taking care of business, while the Braves and the Phillies are having continuing to have some struggles, are playing tougher teams.
I'd like to share a take with my friend, and hopefully I'm in the comfort of my friend and my closest friends who listen to this podcast.
Please,
I want to share something that may be bold to some people, but I'm ready to say this. The Atlanta Braves aren't good. Like, the Phillies are just struggling right now, and they're going to bounce back. The Atlanta Braves are just not a good baseball team.
You're in a safe space, Chris, but I will also like to share my thoughts, and that is,
please. Safe
after
space
the 2022 season, I don't. I need a 50-game lead over the Atlanta Braves in the division. I do not want the smoke. I have too much trauma related to the Atlanta Braves from my whole childhood up until 2 years ago.
If this is me embracing the smoke, if this is me asking for it, I'm going to ask for it. The Braves aren't. Their bullpen is an absolute disaster.
Yeah, I mean,
disaster.
That Diamondbacks game.
Not just the last Diamondbacks game. They then proceeded to blow the next 2 games against the Giants. Shout out to you, Pierce Johnson. They had Craig Kimbrell. He came up, through an inning, was fine. They DFA'd him. They're just like, nah, get off the roster. Their bullpen isn't very good. Acuna is hitting and they're not winning. Like, they're just not a good team right now.
By the way, the Pierce Johnson wild pitch walk-off, the fact that Wilmer Flores was at the plate was just like, of course he was. Like, of course.
Strider isn't very good.
Yeah, he's at a tough.
The velo is down, and it's just making him not the guy he was a couple years ago.
I think the hamstring is definitely affecting that for sure. The Phillies just announced today that Nola's being shut down because he has a stress fracture in his rib. So I think he's out for the next 2 weeks, which is also not a good outlook for them as they are facing the white-hot Chicago Cubs, although they did just take the first game last night. But the Braves are playing the Brewers. Those are tougher competition than, in theory, the Mets have on paper against the Nats. And so they have a nice extra opportunity to continue building up on this division lead.
Would I love a sweep? Yeah, you're playing a team below 500 and you're at home. Will I take a series win? Yeah, just keep stacking series wins, and this is going to be continuing to be an enjoyable ride for the New York Mets. Let's file this one away for next episode. Things we want to see the Mets do at the trade deadline, areas of improvement. Because so far I've only got like 1 or 2 in my head of areas where they can improve, but maybe we'll do a little check-in with that as the month continues. If you want to watch the program, you can catch it over on the YouTube channel, Jack McKessie, McKessy over there. For those of you listening in the podcast feed, please rate, review, subscribe, share the show with a friend. That is potentially the most important thing you can do to give back to the show. If you like what you're listening to, if you're enjoying the podcast, sharing the show to spread it to more Mets fans, to spread it to more baseball fans is the best thing that you can do for us, and we would greatly appreciate that. But that is going to do it for us here on this edition of the Bleav in Mets podcast. We are back after this series with the Washington Nationals to break it all down and to get you ready for a weekend series with Tampa. See everybody, and as always, let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets.